Hi everyone, my name is Otto Dro. I'm a trainer and auditor at EPI. Today I'm going to give you an overview of the content of the Certified Data Center Expert course in order to give you a good impression on what to expect from this training. I hope you will enjoy this preview. CDCE is the highest certification level for data center professionals in the data center industry with regards to the design and build of a mission critical data center. This 5-day course is designed to prepare participants to analyze a given business case and perform technical evaluations of project plans and a set of designs for the implementation of a mission critical data center. The training also engages participants in product evaluation and demonstrates how to select equipment and develop scripts for both individual equipment testing as well as integrated performance verification testing. The participants will also carry out various assignments and exercises such as capacity calculations, data center site selection, validation of data center designs, and so on. In order to be able to register for the CDCE training, participants must hold a valid CDCS certificate. CDCE has 12 modules, so let's get started with Module 1. Those people who did the CDCS training already might still remember that a data center project has 4 major lifecycle stages. Those lifecycle stages are subdivided into phases, and each phase has distinct activities requiring certain skills and capabilities. In the CDCE training, we are using this approach to structure the content of this training. However, the CDCE training only addresses the design, implement, and retire stages, as the operate stage is already covered by the CDFOS and CDFOM courses. So let's start with the design stage. The design stage consists out of 3 major phases, being prepare, plan, and design development. In the prepare phase, we need to raise awareness for the need of a new data center. So we need to create a statement of needs, and based on those business needs, we build a conceptual data center design that will give us input to make an estimation of the required budget and project timelines. Also, site selection is part of the prepare phase, as the location of the data center can have a large impact on the required budget. And last but not least, we need to manage and govern the project by appointing a project manager and setting up a steering committee. In the plan phase, we will create a detailed ICT and facilities requirements. Once this is done, we will freeze the design specifications, and based on this, we can send out a request for proposal and do the vendor selection. The next phase will be design development, where we create the final validated design and construction drawings. Also, long lead time items can be ordered, like generators or transformers. Once the final design is validated and approved, we will freeze the design. This slide shows you the various phases and its activities for the design stage. This structure is also used for the content and sequencing of the CDCE training. The next phase in the design stage is the prepare phase. Here we will need to raise awareness for the need of a new data center. I will not go into all the details of this slide, but it gives you an idea what is, of course, amongst others, needed to create awareness. In CDCE, we will review various aspects and new technologies that can be used for the design of a new data center. The technologies mentioned on this slide addresses energy efficiency. More details on those topics will be given during the training itself. Obviously, redundancy planning will be discussed in great detail, where the relation with standards like the TIA 942 will be explained together with its practical implementation. The conceptual sizing of the data center, like space, power and cooling, is addressed in this training, and the participants will do some of these calculations on a given business case. We will also analyze the existing data center to check whether it is possible to upgrade the current site to fulfill the business needs. Considerations will be discussed whether we could upgrade the existing data center facilities with its pros and cons, but also outsourcing to co-location and or cloud services will be presented and discussed as a possible alternative for building a new data center. Site selection will be given a lot of attention. Here is a list of topics that are part of the site selection content of CDCE. This is one of the slides showing the risk assessment process for site selection. Site selection will also address the cost of real estate and the availability and cost of power. Site selection will also address the specifics on the need for water in the data center, including its cost and required availability. We will give the student guidelines how to go through the process to develop a business case. This will include an oversight on what areas to cover for a data center business case. Different project delivery structures will be pointed out, both design bid build as well as design build, including their advantages and disadvantages. Various options for project management structures will be explained, like here, a single vendor managed project. Also, the process and criteria for selecting the right project manager is part of the CDCE content. After the prepare phase comes the plan phase, where we create the detailed ICT and facilities requirements. Once finalized, we can freeze the design specifications and do the vendor selection. In order to make a detailed data center design, we will need to complete the Operational Systems Requirement Analysis, or OSRA. This will give us the detailed ICT specifications as it is required by the business. Based on the detailed ICT specifications, we can proceed with the Technical Facilities Requirement Analysis that we call the TFRA. The steps for the TFRA process are shown on this slide. Here, more details on one of the steps in the TFRA process, where we need to allocate ICT equipment to rack space or equipment location units. The design development phase is one of the largest modules in the CDCE training. Next to project planning and equipment selection, the design validation will be presented in great detail. After finalizing the TFRA, we can start with a more detailed project planning as shown on this slide. We will point out the criteria that needs to be considered for equipment selection. We will discuss the process for the final review of the data center design, which will include also a few exercises that needs to be done by the participants. During the training, we will discuss the detailed design development in great detail for all aspects of the data center facilities. Here is, for instance, an example for the architectural aspects. Obviously, this slide is only a small part of the presentation regarding the architectural aspects of the design validation. Here another example for the electrical installation and another one for the diesel fuel supply. This is one of the exercises for design validation. Students will be asked to find any mistakes made in this single line diagram. Obviously, there are a few, but also the floor plan of the data center facilities needs to be reviewed by the participants of the CDCE training. Also, examples will be given for design validation reporting. After finalizing the design stage, we will continue with the implement stage. The implement stage consists out of 5 major phases: acquire, construct, fit out, testing and commissioning, and finally the handover to data center operations. The first phase is called acquire, which covers the acquisition of the land or building and the purchase of materials and equipment. The construct phase is about erecting the building or maybe retrofitting an existing building. The fit out phase describes the installation of the data center facilities equipment. The testing and commissioning phase involves the startup of the data center and the testing for capacity, capability, efficiency, and the data center functionality as per the design intent. Handover is the physical handover of the completed data center to the operational and maintenance staff. So now continuous data center operations will commence. As shown earlier for the design stage, this slide shows you the various phases and its activities for the implement stage. So let's start with the acquire phase. We will point out the importance of a proper logistic process where we try to aim for just-in-time delivery and also various other aspects for ordering of equipment are discussed. Also, details on the delivery terms and legal handover of the ordered goods is part of this module. The factory witness test or factory acceptance test will be done during the acquire phase. We will go through all the aspects related to the factory witness test, like planning, preparation, who should attend, and so on. We will give some examples of a typical factory witness test for a UPS and a transformer. Here is one of the slides for the UPS factory witness test. As mentioned earlier, in the construct phase, we are going to erect the building or maybe retrofit an existing building. We will set out the prerequisites before you can actually start building the data center structure. The erection of the building will be done by a specialized construction company. As the actual building of the data center structure involves a complex set of activities like civil works, piling, concrete pouring, etc., the building construction is out of scope of the CDCE course. However, a full detailed inspection of the building construction is covered by the CDCE training, as it shows on this slide. As no building will pass all criteria in one go, we will also go into how to set up and manage a snack or punch list. Once the building has been erected and basic surface entries have been installed, we request for turn on of the water supply, power supply, and in some cases also the sprinkler systems. Module 7 covers the fit-out phase. Here we are describing the installation of all the data center facilities equipment for the required data center services. In the description of the fit-out phase, we also give an example of the fit-out of a UPS room, where this is the first slide, and here we have the last slide describing the fit-out of a UPS room. At the end of the fit-out phase, we need to make sure that all drawings and documentation is up to date and represent the as-built situation. Once the fit-out is completed, we can start the testing and commissioning of the data center facilities. Again, we are giving a structured approach how to implement testing and commissioning in the data center. We will go through the planning of the testing and commissioning activities in order to get approval for the required budget for both the individual equipment testing as well as the integrated performance verification testing, also known as the IET and IPVT. We need to create a testing and commissioning program where we not only need to address the required time and who needs to be present and is involved during the testing, but we also need to know what tools could be required in order to do the actual testing. A number of slides will also show some of the common mistakes made during the testing and commissioning. Examples of test reports will be given in the CDCE training, like this one for the IET testing and another one for the IPVT testing. Similar to the end of the construct phase, the IPVT will result in a list of outstanding items that need to be retested, repaired, redesigned, and so on. So here we have the snack or punch list again. The final activity of the implement stage is the facility handover to the operations team. After the IPVT, the practical completion certificate can be handed over to data center operations, assuming that all documentation is complete and handed over and that training for the operations team has been completed. Of course, the data center should now be ready for installing and running the ICT systems. Here is a list of document categories that needs to be provided during the handover. For example, this slide shows you the required documents for the mechanical facilities. And once the handover has been completed, the defect liability period will start. CDCE will also show you how to manage the defect liability period. When the defect liability period has ended and all snag list items have been resolved, the final completion certificate can be issued, and this means that the project can be closed. We just built a data center, so let's break it down again. The retire stage consists out of three major phases: plan, decommission, and terminate. Plan means that we need to create a business case, that we need to get budget approval, and we need to set up a project plan and a project team. Decommission is the physical action for removal and disposal of data center equipment. Depending on the required outcome of the project, we might need to bring the building back in its original state, or we might even need to demolish the complete building. Terminate is the legal due diligence and the final completion handover. So let's start with the plan phase. There can be various reasons for retirement of the data center. Some of those reasons are given on this slide. Before developing a project plan, we need to address some critical questions. Here's a list of critical questions that will continue also on the next slide. So here are some more critical questions. Once all those questions have been answered, we can proceed with calculating the required budget and create a project plan. Here's an example of a project plan for a data center retirement project. The next phase, described in Module 11, will be the actual decommissioning of the data center. So once the business case have been approved, the actual decommissioning can start. The scope of the decommissioning phase depends on the required end result. For instance, do we need to keep the building intact, or is a complete demolition required? Here is a list of some of the activities required in case of a sale or repurpose of the building. The last module of CDCE is Module 12, Terminate. In case that the building gets a new owner, not only the building needs to be transferred, but also check if you can transfer essential services like power, water, and connectivity to the owner. And here are some tips to think about when the building needs to be demolished. This slide also ends the CDCE training. I almost forgot, as with all EPI trainings, there is also an examen. The CDCE exam is actually divided into two parts, where you must pass for both parts. This, of course, in order to become a certified data center expert. Part 1 of the exam is a 90-minute closed book exam with 60 multiple choice questions. For this part, you need to have a minimum of 45 correct answers to pass the exam. Part 2 is a 90-minute closed book exam with 25 open questions. So this is an essay exam. For this part, you need to obtain a minimum of 75% correct answers to pass the exam. Again, both parts need to be successfully concluded before you can get certified. So this ends the sneak peek of our CDCP training. Further details on this training can be found on our company's website using the URL given on this slide, www.epi-ap.com/CDCE. I hope you have enjoyed this sneak peek of the Certified Data Center Expert course. I would like to thank you for your attention, and we are looking forward to see you at the CDCE training. To contact us, you can use the email address as mentioned on the slide, sales@epi-ap.com. You can also follow us on the social media listed here. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek.